Welcome to another episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. If we truly want to bring forth change, it not only starts with you and I, but it's also about the next generation. So I'm privileged to be joined by Magnolia co-founders, but more importantly, parents of 5, Chip and Joanna Gaines. How are you all?
We're good.
Doing great. Thank you for having us, man.
Of course. Now, you came with Drake, Gella, Duke, Emmy, and crew. Chip, why was it so important that you bring your whole family here for this conversation?
Oh man, when I saw your video, and it's been a couple weeks back now, I can't believe how time has flown, but I mean, bottom line, our family wants to hear what you have to say, and the idea about having an uncomfortable conversation with the Black man, honestly, is exactly what we need for this exact time. No?
Okay, why don't you go get a donut,
okay,
baby?
go get a donut, little bro.
Crew's gonna go get a donut. He'll join us later.
He's like his mom. Thank you.
Now, let's have the uncomfortable conversation. Okay. Joe, I know you had some questions.
Yeah. So, we've been having this dialogue with our kids, and Chip the other day, he was wanting to kind of get a pulse on what are our kids, what are they thinking about all of this? And so he asked the kids a question. Hey, pretend like you're at a gas station and you see a Black man and a white man. Are you more threatened by either of those two men? And the kids really quick all said no. Why? Like in their mind, they didn't even think about that. And so later, Chip and I were talking, and this whole idea of this colorblind thing came up. Chip said, I'm proud. I think our kids are colorblind. And then we started kind of pushing back on that. And I think our question to you is, I've heard other parents say that they want to raise their kids colorblind. In your opinion, what's the best way to move forward with this conversation?
I think that it's best that we raise our kids to see color, because there's a beauty in color and there's a beauty in culture.
Yeah.
So I'm first generation American, and so I didn't grow up with any animals. I didn't grow up with any dogs. And so my sister got attacked by a dog when she was younger. So now as a 29-year-old man, I can't decipher between a dog that's a threat and a dog that's just a pet.
Wow.
Because I didn't grow up with any animals. And I think that if we don't see color, if we don't expose our children to different colors, two different races, then it'll be the same thing. As a white kid who becomes an adult, you won't be able to decipher the difference between a Black man that's a threat and a Black man that's just Black.
Sure.
A Black person won't be able to decipher between a white person that's a racist and a white person who's just white and may happen to be racially ignorant. So I think there's a strength, there's a beauty in seeing color. I don't like the concept of color blindness because colors and cultures are beautiful.
Amen. It's kind of what makes us human.
Exactly.
Everybody's got their own differences and uniquenesses.
Yes.
And even as you imagine our kids here of 5, each one of them have a different look. Each one of them have a different eye color. But each one of our kids have these uniquenesses. And maybe to your point, it's okay to highlight those things, I appreciate that. I've got a question in that, if you asked anyone, even a racist, if they're a racist, I would almost argue, that all of them would say no. How do we attack and solve a problem that I would say some people in our community don't even understand that we've got?
I think that in America, we have to remember history is meant to be remembered, but history isn't always meant to be celebrated. And I think that we have racism so ingrained into our culture, we don't even realize we're blind to it. I go to Nigeria every summer for a medical mission trip, and there was a sweet middle-aged Nigerian woman who, as I was escorting her into the optometry station to get glasses, she refused to get glasses. She was like, I don't need them. She was bumping into things along the way.
Wow.
Well, 30 minutes later, after we fit her for glasses, there was a huge smile on her face because now she realized she can see the full depth of life, see all the dimensions of life, see all the colors of life.
Sure.
And I would argue that that's the same issue we have in America. Like my white brothers and sisters, until they put their glasses on, they can't see all the dimensions of life. And so they can't understand the full picture of, maybe having a school named after a Confederate general that I have to attend as a Black person, maybe that's a problem.
Sure.
Maybe having statues littered across campuses that I have to look at of men who would have oppressed, enslaved, and potentially executed me, maybe that's a problem. So I think that as America, we have to do a better job of properly discussing and placing our heroes.
Sure, Emmanuel, that's powerful, man. I have a quick story about cancer, and cancer is not a real prevalent thing in our family. I was in New York just a couple years back, and I ran into a gal named Gabe Grunwald, and she explained to me about her battle with cancer, and within just a few short years, Joe and I have become just huge advocates of cancer, and we've been to St. Jude and the experience that happened there. And something about your video, Emmanuel, I want to be real clear, was almost like that light bulb moment. I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with cancer and the challenges that people face in that way, but I'm telling you, once I learned about it and I understood it and it affected my soul, I couldn't unforget it. And when I saw your video and even the title, An Uncomfortable Conversation with a Black Man, it was like there was a light bulb that went on in my head. And I was like, I think I've been blind to this reality for maybe my whole life.
And that's my goal of these conversations, for your children, for you, for myself.
When you hear the phrase, we've come a long way, does that feel right to you? Like, is that accurate?
We've come a long way. I would say that it is accurate, but it is incomplete. It's accurate because there was slavery for 339 years. And then after slavery, there were Jim Crow laws. So technically, we've come a long way from slavery to Jim Crow, and then from Jim Crow to the new Jim Crow, the last 70 years or so.
Wow.
That is coming a long way, right? Black people are no longer enslaved. However, there's still such a long way to go. I mean, think about this for a second. Last week, it was 53 years ago to the day that Black and white people finally were able to be married. We were spending the night here in Waco last night, and I thought about this for a second at a dear white friend's house, and I realized if this was 70 years ago, I would have been executed for that.
Wow.
Just imagine that for a second.
Wow.
Sure.
If this was 70 years ago and I was staying in a white person's house in Texas as a Black man, I would have been executed for that. So have we come a long way? Absolutely. Do we still have a long way to go? No doubt about it. But I'm hopeful to a degree because of this, because of interactions like this, and more importantly, because of you all. So I know, Emmy, you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Are you afraid of white people?
Oh, whoa.
That's what I love
Wait
about
a second.
children. Emmy, that is a phenomenal question. I'm not afraid of white people. I am cautious of white people. I think about water and electricity. Water, necessary for life. Electricity, it's also necessary for life. But I do understand if those two have a negative interaction, it could be lethal.
Dang.
Wow.
And so when I still might use my cell phone charger in the bathroom, as a female, you still might use your curling iron or your blow dryer next to the sink.
Sure.
But you have to remember, if those two things ever have a negative interaction, it could be lethal. So I'm not afraid of white people, I'm just cautious. And I think the beautiful thing of children and about children is that we learn things as kids and it develops us as adults, which is why you all being here with your children is the most powerful thing, because this conversation could be life-changing. And not necessarily for their life, but for a life of someone who looks like me.
Sure.
Drake, I know you had a question as well.
Yeah. So with all that's going on in the world, do you have hope for the future?
Do I have hope for the future? I would say absolutely. But I have hope for the future because of this reason. After I put out my first video, I saw Chip retweeted it. And I reached out to you, and you said, I brought my entire family of 7 together because 30 years ago I saw the LA riots, and 30 years ago I'm seeing these riots.
Yes.
And I will not let that happen again. So do I have hope for the future? I do, because of a man like your dad. Do I have hope for the future? I do, because of a woman like your mom.
Wow.
But the only way to have hope for the future is if you all listen to these people, if these people listen to me, and if I listen to them, then I think we all have a lot of hope for the future. So, Chip, I thank you, first and foremost, for being willing. Joe, I thank you for being the matriarch of all matriarchs. And I thank you all for watching another episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. Make sure to Follow, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to ask your questions because the world needs all of us.